Blog Talk Radio.
For the next couple of hours, join us as we explore the imagination, the intuition, the inner realm, the inner world, winding our way into our discovery of the fifth dimension. What it is, what it means, how it looks, how it feels. Discovering new, broader perspectives of life as humans on the earthly plane. A journey within, a journey into a new, yet ancient frontier. A journey into the heart. The journey of our lifetimes. So please allow reason to coexist with your intuition, with inspiration, with your imagination, and join me in the discovery of more and more of ourselves. I promise you a journey unlike any other. Let us together explore the mystical, the amazing, the magnificent world of heart-based living in the fifth dimension. Welcome to the Consciousness Evolution Hour with your host, Philip Mollica. Fond and lovely good evening to you all. I'm Philip Mollica, and this is the Consciousness Evolution Hour. A very exciting day here on Wamega Court on beautiful Lake Wamega in Clarkston, Michigan, as we are using some new technology. It's not new in that sense, but new to us. As we expand our ability to reach more people and to broadcast our message in new and different and exciting ways. And I'm very pleased to be here broadcasting as part of the ENlightenment Evolution Network. And again, as always, much thanks to Rob Goff here for putting together the network for us, for giving us all an opportunity to produce these wonderful shows for everyone's enjoyment and hopefully benefit, which of course is up to the individual, but we can offer it. If it's good for you, then I hope that you enjoy it. I'm here with my lovely partner, Debbie. Thank you so much, my dear, for all your help and for everything that you do to bring this to us and to the world. I'm most pleased to be here with you. So, let me just give you an idea of what we're doing. I'm actually pre-recording this show for tonight. This is Thursday, December 18th. Thank you very much. And we are actually going to be previously engaged tonight. This was a great opportunity for us to pre-record a show and to make it available at our regular slot at 9 p.m. So if you're tuning in tonight via Blog Talk Radio, this is pre-recorded, but it is fresh. Right on target. No latency. You're getting a fresh broadcast. Here we are moving in a week away from Christmas. A very exciting time here in the Mollica McClellan household. And we are recording via Audacity on my computer, which we will then be putting the file up, which is what you're listening to right now if you're on Blog Talk. This video is our first actual recording of one of the Blog Talk Radio shows of the Consciousness Evolution Hour. And this will be going on my YouTube page. It will also be going on the Enlightenment Evolution Network's YouTube page. And we'll see what other takers there might be. Imagine that. Boy, people have been bouncing around this morning. Debbie and I were independently had a lot of some voices that were bouncing around, and I kept asking myself, why are you showing up? Why are you showing up? Why are you showing up? And she walked out of the bathroom and said, oh, by the way, this particular person has been talking to me, and it was exactly the same person that was showing up for me. How synchronous. And that is very exciting as well. So we'll see where these end up. This is just the beginning. This is just going to get bigger and better and more wonderful. But my main purpose today is to produce the show for Blog Talk Radio. We're going to be talking about some various subjects today. I am going to keep this, I think my best service in doing this is to stay current with my own experience rather than going off here and there where we think it might be beneficial to somebody. And if I can just stay with my own experience and with our experience, Debbie's and mine, which has been vast lately, that this will show where we're at and show how the connections that we are using and the tools that we are using to help us in our day-to-day and in our expansion. And just to give you an example of how we are going about it, and I believe I said this last week, that I'm not here to show you the way, and I'm not even here to show you a way for you. I'm here to show you my way, and in that, in the hopes that you will see something that you can pull down from that will be beneficial in your own expansion. And one of the things we also talked about last week is how it is literally impossible for there only to be one way that is going to work for anybody besides you. In other words, the teachers are great, the guides are great, the spiritual guides, the physical teachers who are manifested now, who are living a physical life, who are teaching, they all have ideas around the ways in which to be beneficial to help us all in our expansion. However, that being said, all we can do, truly in that sense, is lead you back to yourself. Because all the answers, all of the procedures and processes and tools, everything that you're going to be using in your own life with your own expansion is going to be coming from you. And the best that I can hope to offer you is an example of how I've gone about it, how Debbie and I are going about it, how we are going about it within ourselves to show you our process that works for us. Just as an example of a way, our way that we're doing it, and to give you encouragement to move within yourself, taking what works, what looks nice, what feels right for you from all the different teachers, all the different guides, all the different texts, all the different perspectives, and to find your own answers within that for what is going to work best for you. I truly believe that is the only way is your way. And the reason it works that way is because this is something I talked about at our meetup group this couple of days ago. And I want to start off here because this idea, if you can get this to land with yourself, will allow all the other pieces to fall in place and will give you the confidence that you may need or that may be helpful to you to know how big and vast you individually are. And that idea is that if you think in terms of all that is, and then think in terms of levels and how all that is levels out and spreads out all the way through the heavens, if you will, or through the dimensions, or however it best works for you to view, to create your own symbology around the differences between the various levels from all that is all the way down to your physical experience. But to me, it's kind of like a pyramid. Excuse me. That's the symbology that works best for me, with all that is at the top, at the very tip of the pyramid. And each level of the pyramid is an expansion, dithering is not the correct word, perhaps a diffusing of the energy of all that is as it then expresses itself in many different forms and in many different ways, all the way down the ladder to us, beyond us, into various aspects of perspectives. And each one of those perspectives is as important as any other perspective within the pyramid of all that is. And that includes you and I. And what I want you to understand, and this is really the point around this idea, is that, and this may be very simplified for many of you, and it may be very, you may think, oh, well, I know that, but let me say it anyway. That from your perspective, I really want you to understand how at each level of creation, all the way from you up the various steps and levels and dimensions, back to the very source of all that is, how absolutely known and supported and aware all that is of every portion of consciousness, every smallest bit of consciousness that expresses here or anywhere in the multiverse, how aware all that is of you, and how important you are to the process of the expansion of all that is. In other words, all that is has within its divine gaze every smallest bit of consciousness, including you, in every single moment, in every simplest thought that emanates from you. Nothing is lost ever. Nothing is forgotten ever. Nothing is ignored ever. Because in its infinite gaze, all that is, with its trademark property with love as its basis. In every moment, in its vast gaze, infinite in each single moment, is aware of and appreciative of and loving of and supportive of everything, including you and I. So nothing we ever do is lost. Nothing we ever do is meaningless. No thought that crosses our mind and emanates out from us is meaningless. Everything in that sense is important not only within our own experience of having a physical experience, but all the way back up the ladder, back up the pyramid, each level, each step, right back to the source at the top of all that is, or if you prefer, of God. And this is such an important understanding. So important to land that within your own psyche, within your own perspective, to know how important and how big you are. Because even though we seem like it's just us playing this separate game, here we are on Earth, we're living physically, we are having an individuated experience here on Earth where we're separate from each other, we're separate from God. This is where we've come through in these eons of time to have that experience of being separated and individual. And this is the amnesic effect that we undertook in order to have an individuated experience in physical, outer created reality. But now we're at a point where we really need to remember and really need to know and have it land and be a part of our being that we are never, ever outside of that infinite loving gaze of all that is. We can never be disconnected from that source that creates our world, that creates our being, that creates our experience in every single moment. In those terms, our life didn't start when we were born and will not end when we die. We all know that. But do you understand that you are literally created anew in every single moment. And you are created anew in every single moment through the infinite love that exists within all that is. Every single moment, your beingness, your isness, your I am is created anew. So you are never, ever outside of God's loving gaze. Interesting that every time I get a glimpse of it, It literally brings me to my knees when I feel that energy pulse through me. Get a glimpse of the beauty of the incredible, unimaginable love that is held for us in every moment we call God. It shakes me to my core. It is so intense and so true to my heart that my body almost can't contain the energy of it. Beautiful it is. That's how big it is. That's how infinite it is. And each single one of us, in our individuated experience, in our supposedly separate experience, is never apart from that. If we were, we wouldn't exist. If we were outside of God's gaze for even a moment, we wouldn't exist, because we are literally created anew in each moment by the grace of that loving intent, that beholding of us from the very highest levels, the highest level of consciousness in those terms. We are always held in that regard. If you can land that in your experience, everything else will be easy. And you will never, ever wonder again about your worthiness, about your right to be here, about the importance of your existence. Because truly, every single one of us, in our daily experience, in our moment-to-moment experience, truly every single one of us is as important to the whole as anything at any level of creation. Because if you pulled any part of all that is, it would not be all that is. And that just goes to show you this is. So let that land for a moment with you. Feel into that infinite loving gaze. That regards the smallest unit of consciousness in every single moment, and reinforces and energizes and supports all levels, all beings, all things within that. Feel that in your heart. And then everything else that we're going to do and everything else we're going to talk about will fall right in place very easily for you. And your life, as you walk through your day, more sense to you, and will be much easier for you to understand when you know of your own importance. How critical you are. Excuse me. How critical you are to this process of creation. Because truly we are all within this big fruit bowl of creation. All the apples and oranges and pears and cherries, but yet we're all held within that bowl and all appreciated for our flavor, for our unique texture, for our thickness and thinness of skin, for our seed structure. Nice little analogy. But it just goes to show how no matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter what your inclinations or disinclinations might be, of how you are just as important to the idea of God and creation as anything is. You have a right to be here. You have a right to be who you are. To be exactly who you are. Not somebody's idea of what you might be or should be. Those are just ideas. Those are other people's ideas for themselves and when people are in fear, they want to push those ideas out onto other people so that they can control things because they're afraid of something being different than what they understand about themselves. It's only in fear, and it's only a lack of understanding that keeps anyone from allowing everyone to have their own experience of life. Because there is no risk. There's no risk to anybody. There is only creation. There is only consciousness in its many forms, in its infinite forms. And so each of us here has an opportunity. We came here to have an experience. We came and created an outer created reality, creators that we are. Created a life, an outer created reality. We created the stage, we created the props, we created the players who are playing the roles within our play. We created the circumstances, we created the events, we created the minutest detail of our experience. All in service to the whole. The whole includes us. We are, again, never outside of that infinite loving gaze. But we came here to have a physical experience. And so here we are banging around down here, and we think we're alone, and we think that we have to do it alone. And even when we regard our support and our guides, our angels, our spirits, our extraterrestrial friends, hello, it is still people who want to separate the extraterrestrials, the aliens, the spiritual guides. No. It's one big pie. It's all in support of us. We are here having a very dense experience. Very dense experience in the idea of all of creation. There are, of course, many levels of creation, and some are lighter than others. Again, thinking in levels, and I'm only speaking in terms of levels in order for us within this physical experience, those of you watching me, those of you listening to me, to be able to, within your perspective, your physical perspective, to be able to picture it. But even there is distortion, because even in that there is no separation. The separation that we feel, that we experience, is simply our translation into what we're currently doing in physical. It's our translation of events that really have no translation into physical. So when I speak of levels, and when I speak of dimensions, and when I speak of different beings, of course these are translations. These are ideas that can help us get a handle on what we're doing here, and help us get a handle on things that are beyond our physical outer created reality that we really don't have words and terms for, that we really have to translate because they are not physical like we are. So in those terms, and really that brings me to a really great point, and it's kind of what was current for me today. And I wanted to talk a bit about, I'm going to use the word, but I don't want you to get hung up on the word, because what I'm going to talk about is so much bigger than the word I'm going to use, and that is dreams. And how our dreams are supported of us. And I don't even want to use the word dreams because everyone has a preconceived notion around this idea of what dreams are and what the dream state is. And really, I want to ramp up our idea of what those represent, those ideas represent in our outer created reality, and what they really are to us. The first idea that I would like to broach is, number one, that we are never really separated from what we call our dream state. Sleeping, waking, dreaming, all the same thing. While we are focused in what we call awake in our outer created physical reality, what we call awake, we think we put our dreams away and that's now somewhere else, and okay, now we're not dreaming anymore, now we're doing this, now we're living. But really, we are never apart from that state of being. Because what we call our dream state is really our true nature. It is our natural state. We're not here having a physical experience and then let's take time out and go to sleep and go somewhere else and go dream something. And now, oh, the dream is done, so, okay, let's wrap all that up, and let's come back, oh, and now we're going to wake up, and now we're going to live our real life. That's not how it works. It's how we've translated the idea, and even still, it's still widely accepted in most people's perspectives and most people's ideas of what dreaming is, of what the dream state is, of what sleep is, and of what waking reality is. And I want to start to try to change our perspectives around that and give you some new thoughts to work with in terms of what those states really represent. And the first thing that I want to impress you with, first and foremost, most of all, is that you are never apart from what we call the dream state. Even when you're awake, in that sense, and you're still dreaming. And we're going to quickly get away from that whole line of description because it no longer fits. We are going to break for one moment, and we will return after some technical, not difficulties, some technical investigations. We will return and we will come back and speak some more about these ideas around the dream state. Be right back. Welcome back to the Consciousness Evolution Hour. I'm Philip Mollica. Let's try this again. Okay. So you did get a little break. From our standpoint, it was a larger break than what you just experienced. You had, 20 seconds of dead air. We had about 2 hours of really live air. I'm back here at lovely Lake Wamega in Clarkston, Michigan with my dear partner, Debbie. Thank you, my dear. And we're going to pick up where we left off, which was talking about dreams. And the idea that I was trying to get around dreams, and it might be a little repeat here because I'm actually picking up 2 hours later, unbeknownst to you. But the idea around dreams is that those two states, what we think of as dream state and what we think of as the waking state, are really not as separate as we've been led to believe. And in fact, the more that we can understand the connection between those two states of being that we separate in our physical reality, that we act like as two very different things, are actually never apart, are actually never separated, are actually always ongoing. In fact, this might be wrong, I'm not sure, but our waking state, if anything, would be the state that begins and ends in duration. In other words, our waking state, our outer created reality, we actually have to, at some point in non-physical, in what we call our dream state, have to decide that we're going to go into avatar. And we, in some sense, go to sleep in what we call the dream state, which is really our true state of being, and then wake up here in this outer created physical reality, which then is within a completely different dimension of space-time, which we are not in our natural state and non-physical, or in the dream state, as you wish, that we literally, in some fashion, go to sleep in our true state and wake up into a completely different type of dimension in which there is time and there is space, where there is duration, where we have experience by, instead of just imagining an idea and having it create in front of us, which is what we do in our natural state, to actually place ourselves into a time-state environment, time-space environment, in which the things that we wish to create, we actually get to see the process of ourselves creating those things over a period of duration. Because without the duration, we wouldn't have any sense of the process of our creative efforts. Because we are creators, whether we're here or in non-physical, but we're creating in a whole different way depending on whether we're in our natural state or whether we're in our dream state, which for heretofore, hereafter will be considered our waking state. How are we going to do that? How can I talk about the dream state and have you think in terms of the waking state? Well, we're going to work on that one. We're going to pound that one a bit. We'll get that to land. So, let's go back to the idea of the dream state. Let's talk about that a little bit more. What we call the dream state, which is the waking state, and the waking state, which is the dream state. We'll keep reminding you of that difference. But for our purposes, let's just talk about physical and non-physical, because that's easily differentiated. Everyone pretty much knows what we're talking about. And for our terms, and in truth, non-physical is our true natural state of being. Now, let's differentiate non-physical into a couple of parts. And again, we're creating parts and levels for the idea of being able to land that within our reference points that we have in physical. But actually, there are different levels from here. If you look from here, from our physical reality, our outer created physical reality, and you look into non-physical, from this perspective, there are actually a couple of different levels. We were just reading Seth yesterday where he was talking about this, and it was extraordinary idea that actually the dream state isn't even our natural state. The dream state is only a product of a physically experiencing entity. And it's an in-between place which allows for the translation of our true nature, which is even beyond that, and allows for us to translate into physical terms that we can understand here in our physical body, a means of understanding what we are actually doing in our natural state of being, which is neither the waking state nor the dream state. How's that for a hot potato? So let's talk about that a little more, because in our natural state, and there's still a lot more, admittedly, even for myself to understand around this, and I'm in the process, and Debbie and I are in the process of truly fleshing out these ideas for ourselves with the help of our dear spiritual guides and teachers, Seth, Elias, Abraham, and Bashar, of course. How could I forget? And each of these entities provide a different flavor, if you will, a different flavor, a different variation on a theme all in support of a much greater truth. But our dear friend Seth spoke about our true natural state of being as being something that which is really non-translatable to physical reality. We really don't have the words, thoughts, terms, and ideas and concepts in order to truly land that idea from this perspective. You have to remember, you exist simultaneously at all levels, all the time, with all these perspectives, but from this perspective of your outer created physical reality, we have to speak in those terms. And in those terms, there really is no literal translation for our experience in our natural, true state of being in non-physical. So the dream state is actually kind of a midway point, kind of a stopping off point, I suppose we could call that the template reality. I suppose those would be synonymous terms of that place where we actually have to take what we know and what the information that we have been given or that we've gathered ourselves from our true natural state of being, and we translate it as best we can into terms that we know because we're doing all of it. We're creating our dreams very, very intimately, very, very succinctly, very, very purposefully. We are creating our dreams to give us a message from non-physical to physical that we can use to help us along, to give us information that's coming from us to us. And this information is so vast that we can't even begin to hold that information, to access that information from within physical. We literally do not have the capacity to hold that information in place, so we have to give it to ourselves in bits and pieces in very specially coded packages that are activated within physical through our dreams, through events, brought through ourselves to ourselves to give us information. And that information is up to us to use. You can ignore it, but it really is meant to aid and support us because you do love you at all levels. And remember, it's not just you, but you go all the way up, as we said at the top of the show, all the way up from this physical reality right back to the very tip of the pyramid of all that is. So it is never just you. There is an aspect of you which is an aspect of God, which is expressing itself through you in physical reality. But that aspect that is expressing itself as you is no less a part of all that is or God than any other piece of consciousness in the universe, in the multiverse. It is no less a part of God. So you and you and you and you and all that is and Source and God and you and everybody else and you are giving you a message through your dreams. The dreams are very purposefully put together by you to deliver a message to you. And that's why it's so important to examine your own dreams within your own context. because there is nobody in the world or anywhere else, anywhere in the multiverse, that can translate your dreams and tell you what they mean to you. Granted, we live in a human collective consciousness, in a physical reality where we share ideas about what is and what is not, but even at that, there is nobody else that can translate your dreams like you can, because you have the codes. Remember, I said all of your dreams are coded. They're coded. They can only be activated by you. You walk through your day, you consider your dreams, you think them through. You find a bit here and a bit there. You find a key. That is your code. Your code unlocks the dream. Then you can view the dream in its beautiful, complete, full expression, and how it was meant for you and for you alone. Because if you're creating them, you're also creating the codes for them, which means you have the key on the other side. Because remember, it's all you. It's you in physical reality. It's you at the template level in the dream state. And it's you in your natural state in those areas beyond that we don't even have a name or a description for. And as I was saying, there are levels of experience. One of these being the dream state. And I was talking about dreams and how they are very intimately and purposefully coded by you for you to deliver a message to you. And how you are the only one who can really properly determine what that means to you in your life. Because everything that comes through in your dreams is meant to be very meaningful for you. I will give you just a couple of pointers that have worked for me, that seem to work for me. Now, I suspect that this will be different for different people, but I know that when I am describing a dream, I pay a special attention to the words that I use, because as a rather literal person by training, I tend to be very good with my words. And I have what I consider a fairly wide vocabulary. So therefore, for my higher levels, if I wanted to deliver a message to me, what I would do, imagine that. What I would do if I were me, is I would give me a dream in which the words I used to describe it were exactly the words that I needed to know, but not necessarily within the context that they were given to me in the dream. In other words, so if I take a dream and I describe it, and I take each word and I could put each word on a separate piece of paper and plaster it around the room, and I could look at those words, and from that I could look at the context of my current experience, and I could say, where do these fit into what I'm doing right now? Where do these fit into what I need to know right now in my own life? And that tends to lead me to the meaning for me, from me, of my dreams. That idea in itself is pretty extraordinary, because when I think about it, I think that is so what I would do. Well, yeah, because it's all you. And that's what you need to remember. You will work in the way that works best for you and nobody else. And because we are each unique, of course, how we represent our dreams to ourselves in order to deliver a message is going to be unique as well. Now, maybe this idea of the words that I use to describe my dream being meaningful to me within their own context, outside of the context of the dream, maybe that will work for some other people too. Maybe that's a good place to start. I don't know. It's one place to look. But your dreams may be much more literal. You may be far more likely to flights of fancy that are much more complicated and rich, and in the sense of fantasy type dreams, or of varying degrees, because everyone's going to do it a little bit differently. I tend to dream, and I call it pragmatically. Would that be a apt term? I tend to dream pragmatically. In other words, I tend to dream about things that I'm familiar with, things that are acutely present in my life, or things from the past that I may have experienced that made a deep impression on me, places, houses, homes, various meeting places. And I tend to frequent much of the same areas. In that sense, my dreams aren't much of a fantasy. In other words, I'm not going to far distant lands generally, and with dragons and knights and or even extraterrestrials for that. Although, interesting that you should mention that. Thank you very much. I am noticing more and more in my dreams that I tend to be interacting with beings that are not of physical, even though I recognize them as friends and family members, as people that I know. I realize that I'm not really looking all that closely at them. I'm really kind of getting a sense of them. It's like knowing somebody is something but not making eye contact with them. Is that to prevent me from freaking myself out? Maybe. Maybe if I really took a good hard look at who I was talking to, who I thought I was talking to, but who I really am talking to, but guess what? It's not the same ones that I thought I was talking to here. They're really different people. They're the same people. Expressions. Really the same energies. But they're not from here. And neither are you a lot of times. You may be experiencing an aspect of yourself on a far distant planet, or as a completely different kind of being. But I can give you a couple examples of recent dreams where I was speaking to my mother and father in a room. This is very, very interesting. I was in a room, and my mother and father were in there, along with a lot of other people. There were actually a lot of other people in there, including my dear Debbie. And Debbie, amazingly enough, was just like Debbie, looked just like her. I mean, I took a good look at that. I did notice that. Just like she would look sitting across from me, listening to me while I was speaking, as she is now. But I was very aware that the other people that I was talking to in the room, and here's what's interesting, while I was there, I was speaking to my father, primarily to my father, but I was speaking to a group of people, much like I am now, talking about, it was basically a spirituality 101 talk that I was giving. And the interesting thing about it is I remember the whole speech. I remember giving it. It wasn't like it was something like I skipped through like you usually in a dream where you think something, a thought is actually this whole conversation that you consider rendered at that point. But I actually went through the step-by-step, the 101, telling it primarily to my father as he scurried about the room, up and down the corners of the room, the walls and the ceilings. I didn't really think about that until later. Eyes of fire, which is probably why I didn't take too close a look. But yet I knew it was his energy and his essence. And in fact, he spoke back to me, while my mother sat in a bed to the right of me, kind of babbling incoherently, but yet involved in what I was saying, but was kind of like a whisper voice, and as if she was ill or something and was being cared for by my father. Very interesting. And there were a lot of other people in the room, so I went through the spiel. I call it a spiel. It's not. But I went through what came through to me at that time that I felt was relevant and important for them to know. And I could tell my father was very, very interested in what I had to say, and it was very important for me to tell him because I didn't even come across any of this information until after he had passed. And I would love now to go back into physical and have these conversations with him, because I know as the thoughtful, really amazing ability to consider all sides of things. And even though my father had a lot of his own idiosyncrasies and ideas and beliefs around certain things, he still was always very willing to consider alternate points of view for the most part. And I know along these lines we could have amazing discussions around that. So I finished the discussion at that point with him, and I could tell he was very pleased, and he looked at Debbie as I did and told us it did his heart good to see Debbie there so sure of what I was saying, instead of saying, why don't you go get me another fucking drink? Don't ask me. I don't know what it means, but I could get the general idea. Now, this is an example of a very vivid dream that I had. And again, there are different levels of dreams. Some are very symbolic. This one was very vivid, as if it actually took place in another place, a physical place. And the interesting thing about it was I had just been up prior to this dream, and I went back to sleep and immediately had this dream, and it was like a 20-minute dream, and I literally woke up in about 20 minutes and was brought back awake, aware that I had had this dream, which I then was able to reiterate to Debbie and review my own and see what the significance of it was. But it was very interesting in that sense that it was a very vivid dream, as if it actually happened. And this tends to be, so I think even in the dream state, there are different levels of dreams, and some of them are more like out-of-body experiences than dreams in which your consciousness has actually traveled to another planet or another part of the planetary system or another star system and actually interacted with beings who are aware of you as you, because I wasn't like them in that dream, and neither was Debbie. I felt like me, like as if my body, my consciousness, Phil here in Michigan, traveled to another star system or another planet and had a conversation with beings who were not human. but who I knew and who knew me. Extraordinary. I was so pleased and thankful to have been given that experience of having that dream. There's still a lot of symbology in it. There's still a lot of translation in that sense because I still had to make it look like something that I could relate to. And even in the dream state, in that sense, I wasn't aware in the moment of my father not being my father, or being my father but not being the same physical being that I associate as being my father. So to me, that's extraordinary. And then I had another dream last night, which I've now found to be very helpful. It wasn't at the moment I had it. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. I had to think it through somewhat. But it was a very symbolic dream. It involved people that I knew. It involved people that, in physical reality right now, I would prefer not to be dealing with. However, it just goes to show me something, and we're going to get to the something that it showed me. But what I want to tell you about the symbolic dream is that basically I was told or shown that if I allowed and trusted somebody to do something for me, that I had to take into consideration their energy and make the decisions for myself and not be led along by the idea I could always be a kind and decent person and could expect the same from others. And I still believe in the idea that I can be a kind and decent and loving person. But I was shown very clearly that I can't expect that from anybody else. And that I had to use my judgment and my discernment to make those calls on a moment-by-moment basis. And very interesting that this person that I would really not rather deal with right now, who was in my dream, actually did me a great favor in showing me this. And I find that extraordinary. And I knew this at some levels, but to really have it driven home, that this person actually showed me their energy over again in a way that would save me from making another mistake of the same type, all in support of me. That's extraordinary. That just goes to show you the level of connection that there is in the other realms and in other levels of your being. And that we are so much bigger than we think we are, and the idea and the game and the play and the machine, the system, is so much bigger and more vast and more intricate than we could ever imagine at this level. And when you can gain an understanding of the vastness of the system and the intricacy in the way in which it was developed and the way in which the system works, and you understand how the system works, you can make it work for you. Because the whole point in all of this that I'm telling you, starting at the top, you come from all that is, you're in the regard of all that is, you have experiences at many different levels. Some of them are what we call the physical state. Some of them are the dream state, which is a translated state, which occurs between our natural state and a physical state, and only occurs in physical beings. That is the only place the dream state occurs, is in a physical time-space environment, because it's not needed otherwise. That's the only place the dream state exists. And that dream state is there to give you information to help you through your physical day-to-day life. That's what it's meant for. And it's from you to you. And it is ordained, in that sense, all the way to the top level. Are you starting to get a picture of this? Are you starting to get a feel for how big this is? This is huge, folks. It is so big we can't even begin to imagine it. Our tiny, feeble little brains cannot even begin to contain the amount of information that makes up what we are. We have to piece it out to ourselves. We literally go up and gather as much information that can be as helpful as we can based on our own inclinations and disinclinations, based on the significances of our own consciousness and the uniqueness of that in comparison to all the other consciousness units, organizations, and we literally piece together, pull down the data that we want, we translate it, we encode it, and then we make it available to our physical existence to help us in our physical reality. Are you starting to see a little bit of this? This is big. And when we start to get a real feel for how big this is and how powerful we are and how much we can use this information to help us, we will transform ourselves, and in turn, we will transform our world. Because it's all there for us. It's all there for us. It's ready to do. It's ready to go. I said 6 months ago, everything is in place. Everything is ready. I woke up from a dream, thank you very much. And the first words out of my mouth to Debbie were, everything is ready, everything is in place. And truer words could not have been spoken. Because here we are in our shift. Here we are in our raising our frequency and our evolving our consciousness, which really isn't changing, we're just becoming aware of more of it. So consciousness evolution is sort of a misnomer, but I'm not throwing it out just yet. However, that being said, it really is just a matter of us becoming more of who we've always been. And isn't that what this is all about? As Bashar says, you can sum up the purpose of life in 2 words, and we all know them. And it's not just here, it's everywhere, everywhere in existence, every type of consciousness. The 2 words that sum up the purpose of it are know thyself. That's it. Because in knowing ourselves, we feed back to all that is. We make all that is more than it was before, and we open up a bank of new information to be used by beings and consciousness and organizations of consciousness in all manner, in all places in the multiverse. We expand God through our living. I think I am going to leave you with this to chew on until next week. And we'll see what new information has been brought down to me by me through my dream state, from my true natural state of being into my physical reality to serve me. And we'll see what's there to serve me next time. And whatever that is, I will be certain to share with you. So, from Philip Mollica and Debbie McClellan Jacobson, from everyone in the Consciousness Evolution groups, from everyone in Enlightenment Evolution Network, on behalf of Rob Goth here and myself, I wish you a blessed and lovely night. And pay attention to your dreams. And we'll talk about it some more next time. Much love to you. Good night.